I still remember the day my world shattered. It wasn't a loud explosion, just a quiet click. The sound of my girlfriend, Sarah, ending a hushed phone call as I walked into the room. She looked up, startled, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "Just my mom," she'd said, a little too quickly. I didn't question it. Why would I? We had been together for 5 years. We were building a life, or so I thought. We'd just signed a lease on a beautiful apartment downtown, our names intertwined on the legal document, a symbol of our shared future. The signs were there, of course. They always are. In hindsight, the late nights at the office, the sudden need for privacy with her phone, the way she'd started dressing up for girls' nights out. I'd chalked it up to stress, to her new promotion. I wanted to be the supportive boyfriend, the one who trusted her implicitly. Love has a way of making you blind, doesn't it? It puts on the rosest of glasses and filters out all the red flags. The truth came out in the most mundane way possible. A shared laptop. I was looking for a document for work, and there it was. An open chat window she'd forgotten to close. It wasn't just a flirty conversation. It was a detailed history of a year-long affair. Plans, memories, declarations of love. The other person wasn't a stranger. It was a mutual friend. Someone who had been to our home, eaten at our table. The betrayal was a double-edged sword, and it cut deep. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated rage. I wanted to scream, to break things, to confront her and watch her perfect facade crumble. I pictured the dramatic showdown, the tears, the accusations. But as I sat there, the screen glowing in the dark room, a strange calm washed over me. What would a scene accomplish? It would give her the satisfaction of a reaction, a chance to play the victim, to twist the narrative. No. My pain was my own, and my revenge would be too. It wouldn't be loud or destructive. It would be silent, meticulous, and perfect. The plan started to form in my mind that very night. Our new apartment lease was the key. We were both legally bound to it for the next 12 months. We had just moved in. The boxers were barely unpacked. The rent was steep, something we could only afford together. Alone, it would be a crushing financial burden for either of us. And that's where my plan began. The next few weeks were the hardest performance of my life. I became the perfect boyfriend. I helped her unpack the remaining boxers. I suggested we hang the photos of us from our last vacation. I cooked her favorite meals. Every "I love you" felt like ash in my mouth, but I said it with a smile. I listened to her complain about work, feigning sympathy, all while knowing she was probably spending her lunch breaks with him. She relaxed. She thought she'd gotten away with it. The guilt she might have felt began to fade, replaced by the comfort of her double life. Meanwhile, I was busy in the background. I started quietly separating our finances, a task made easier since we'd always kept separate bank accounts. I began systematically moving my belongings out of the apartment, piece by piece. A box of books here, a few items of clothing there. I'd tell her I was taking things to a donation center or dropping stuff off at my parents' house for storage. She was so wrapped up in her own world, she'd never noticed. My side of the closet grew emptier. The bookshelf thinned out, but our shared space still looked lived in. I also started documenting everything. I took screenshots of the chat logs and saved them to a secure cloud drive. Not for blackmail, but for my own peace of mind. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't all in my head. It was a quiet anchor in the storm of my emotions. The final phase of my plan was set for the 1st of the month, the day our first full month's rent was due. The night before, I cooked a special dinner. Her favorite pasta, a nice bottle of wine. It was our official housewarming, I told her. We talked about the future, about decorating the balcony, about the trips we'd take. She was radiant, happy, completely oblivious. It was the Last Supper, and she had no idea. That night, I barely slept. I waited until the early hours of the morning, when I was sure she was in a deep sleep. I wrote a short, simple note. It didn't contain anger or accusations. It just said, "I know everything. The apartment is all yours now. Good luck." I placed it on her pillow, right next to her sleeping face. Then, I took my go-bag, which I had packed weeks ago with my essentials, and walked out the door of the apartment we were supposed to call home. I didn't look back. I drove to a new, smaller apartment I had secretly leased on the other side of town. The first month's rent was already paid. It was sparse, but it was mine. The fallout was exactly as I had predicted. Around 9 a.m., my phone exploded with frantic calls and texts from her. I ignored them. Then came the emails, a torrent of confusion, then denial, then panicked apologies and pleas. I read none of them. I had already blocked her number in her social media profiles. A few days later, I heard through a mutual friend, a real friend, that reality had hit her hard. She was legally on the hook for a year, rent on an apartment she couldn't afford alone. Her affair partner, when faced with the prospect of having to actually commit and move in to help pay the bills, suddenly got cold feet. Their illicit romance, it turned out, wasn't so appealing when it came with real-world responsibilities and a massive rent payment. Her perfect world had imploded, not with a bang, but with the silent weight of consequences. She had to scramble to find roommates, to explain to her family and friends why I had suddenly vanished. She was forced to live every single day in the monument of our failed relationship, a constant reminder of her betrayal. My revenge wasn't about hurting her in a fiery blaze of glory. It was about quietly removing myself from the equation and letting the natural consequences of her actions play out. I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to create a scene. I just had to leave. I chose peace over drama and self-respect over a shouting match. The silence was my victory. It took time to heal. Of course, betrayal leaves scars that fade but never fully disappear. But moving into my own space, starting fresh, was the first step. I focused on my work, reconnected with genuine friends, and rediscovered hobbies I'd let slide. I found strength in my own independence. The best revenge is not stooping to their level. It's building a better life for yourself, one so full of happiness and success that they become an insignificant footnote in your story. My revenge was silent, it was clean, and it allowed me to walk away with my dignity intact. And that, I can tell you, is the most perfect revenge of all. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, know that you're not alone, and that the best path forward is the one you build for yourself. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.